I wanted to punch in the face and see if I could take it. It's a risky plan, especially for my first one. There's a voice in your head telling you, you can't do it. I want to see if I can be world class in the marathon too. The roads are a beast. 2028, it's a home Olympics. The goal is to win.
Today we are joined by two-time Olympic medalist and world record holder, Grant Fisher.
After years of track running success, we are recording the day after his half marathon debut here in New York, running one of the fastest half marathon debuts for an American-born athlete.
Listen to hear Grant's race day reflections, what's next for him, and his invaluable training advice. Let's get into the episode. Hey Grant, how are you?
I'm doing well. A little tired, but I'm doing well.
I can't wait to dive into your debut half marathon yesterday. But we will start at the beginning, where we like to start with all of our guests. Can you take us back to when you found running and how you grew up in the sport?
I started running because I was a big soccer player growing up. Football for you, but soccer for me. I wanted to get in better shape for soccer. And my middle school had a cross-country team, and a couple of my friends had started running a little bit. So I started doing the same. So my first step into running was middle school cross country. We were probably running about 5 miles a week. And it was fun. It was social for me. By the time track season came around for my middle school, I started to hate the distance running because they made us do a 2-mile long run, and I was not about that. So I switched to pole vault. So I was a pole vaulter through most of middle school, and then I came back to distance running.
That's so mad. But like, it feels like you were just having fun, like the real simple essence of, athletics, just trying your hand at anything and seeing what kind of sticks.
Yeah, I mean, those were the days kind of pre-hyper specialization for young kids. So I was doing the hurdles, I was doing pole vault, I was doing sprints, I was doing distance. And as time went on, I started to fall more in love with distance running and found I was pretty good at it too. So that always helps when you're a kid, you get that positive feedback, So I slowly slid out of soccer and transitioned more and more to just running. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I had completely cut out soccer and was just running and taking me all the way here.
Yeah. I would love to know at what point when you were on the track, you were like, oh, I'm good at this.
It's weird. I felt like I was good when I was young, but your world is so small. Good is winning a competition against one school. And then once I did that, I could win a competition against the county, and then the whole region, and then the state, and then, the country. And so your world kind of grows as you grow in the sport, or I grew in the sport. A big moment for me was in high school. I won the national championship in cross country as a junior. And that was huge for me because going into the race, I'd never really raced people from other states too much. And I showed up and won, and I completely surprised myself. I think surprised a lot of people. And at that point I was like, oh man, I have a huge talent for this. Like, I think I can get a scholarship for this. And yeah, I ended up getting a scholarship to my dream school. I went to Stanford, 4 years there, and absolutely loved it. Ran well enough there to have some sponsors knocking on the door, and signed a contract with Nike, and I've been with Nike ever since. Your first step on the big stage being a success was really eye-opening for me, and quite a shock.
That is so cool. But I think it's really important that you didn't get complacent and thought, yeah, I'm good, I'm comfortable here. And you did keep picking it up, to bigger and bigger competitions. I guess that cross country that you won, were you a complete underdog there?
Yeah, I'd run well in the lead up to that. So I think people that were paying attention might have put me in the conversation for, maybe a top 10 finish. Mm. But also at that time, social media wasn't that big. I don't mean to date myself too much, but social media wasn't huge back in 2013, 2012. And yeah, I didn't really have a good gauge of how good I was. And it isn't until you test yourself and set a goal and go for it that you find out if there's a little something extra out there. And kind of like I said earlier, when you go from just racing people in your town to the state or whatever the next level is, you don't know how you're going to do until you try. And sometimes you fail, sometimes you come up short, but sometimes you do hit a home run. Mm-hmm. And in that case, I did. And it was really, really fun. That doesn't happen every time, obviously. And it only can happen once. You kind of only really get that huge surprise at each level once. But when you get it, especially when you're young and impressionable, it's a good feeling.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of led into your professional career as well, trying new things and finding whether or not they fit, whether you find joy in them, are you successful in them? So I think, knowing that yesterday was your debut at the half marathon, going for big swings. How was that decision? When did you make that decision to give it a try?
Working on a half marathon is something I've thought about for a while. On the track, I usually specialize in the 5K and 10K. The half marathon is a little more than double the 10K. So, it's the next step, but it's a big step. The terrain is totally different. The competition is different. You have more road specialists, marathoners. You got to wake up earlier for the race, eat different food. You have to fuel during the race. I'm not used to that. So a lot of new things, but I was looking for a challenge. I was looking for something hard and something where success was not guaranteed. And that was exactly what I got. I got a very hard race against some very talented athletes, and my legs, kind of got away from me the last few miles, but it was fun and it was really informative. I think if I would have set a smaller goal or chosen a simpler, easier race, I wouldn't have learned as much in just one go. Yeah. But for this one, I have all these things that I can change or think about for my next one. And when you challenge yourself, you get that feedback. Yeah. And sometimes it's not the feedback you want, but it's good feedback and it makes you better. And especially as a pro where I'm really trying to get every little last thing out of myself, I think it was a very informative race. It was a good start. It wasn't a home run, but it was a good start.
I would love my wheels to come off and still run like 60 flat. You ran 60 and 57 seconds, right?
Something like that.
For like one of the fastest US half marathon debuts, which is just insane. Did you feel a pressure to move up from the track to the roads? I feel like that is a trajectory that they just move up in distance as they get a bit older. Did you still feel like that underdog? No one really knew your name, no one knew what you were capable of, or do you think there was a lot of pressure on you for that?
There was a decent amount of pressure, but there's no one that wants me to be successful more than myself. I'm a very competitive person, and I've done really well on the track. I don't think I needed to move up to the half marathon right now, but I wanted to. And when it's voluntary like that, it's something that you're searching for. I think it has a different weight when you go into it. So for me, this was just my first step onto the roads. I'll still run track throughout this year and most likely next year. This was just to make that transition a little smoother when the time comes. Usually the trajectory for a track athlete is, like you said, to slowly move up where you're running 5Ks and then you run 10Ks and then you run half marathon and then you run marathon. I kind of want to blend those together a little bit better so that it's not as hard of a transition when the time comes. So this was a shock to the system. This was hard. A little over a month ago, I was racing 2Ks indoor. That's about 10 times shorter than a half marathon. So big challenges, asking my body to do a lot of different things at the same time. But I like shooting for big goals. Yeah. And in that race, for example, I went out hard with the leaders and paid for it in the end. But I'm happier with that than if I would have let the leaders go 100%. And never known if I could hang with them or not. Yeah. And I found out I couldn't. I could hang with them for 10 miles, but I couldn't hang with them for 13. Yeah.
You went out in like a 27 high 10K. You weren't like that far off the UK 10K record. Like that was a punchy start. And I know from your track experience, you're pretty famous for like your last kick, like a big finish. Obviously, you said the wheels came off a little bit. Was the plan always to go off hard and cling on for dear life? Because that seems like the opposite mentality to how you've raced track races.
That was always the plan, yes. It's a risky plan, especially for my first one. These guys have most of that field had raced plenty of marathons before. A lot of them had raced the New York City Half Marathon specifically several times. So they knew the course, they knew how to prepare. And I needed to size myself up against them. That's just how I'm wired. If I wanted a time trial situation, I would have sought that out. I would have picked a flat course where I had control of all the variables and had a pacer and been really, really methodical about making sure that everything was smooth and taken care of. But I didn't want that. I wanted to punch in the face and see if I could take it. And I could for a while, but yeah, in the end, it beat me down a little bit too much. And that's just how it goes sometimes. But now I know. I know that I need to work on being resilient to those early miles where we're running really fast downhill, making sure that I'm used to the pounding of the roads, making sure I'm incorporating even more hills in my training, getting used to just kind of a fartlek style race where usually on the track it's pretty smooth and then it winds up at the end. So those are all lessons that I learned that I wouldn't have gotten if I went to a much smaller half marathon and done a time trial. So I think hopefully this makes my transition to the roads eventually better.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes you a world-class professional and so accomplished in your field, just the test and learn, right? I think especially when you think about the world that you're in and how you push yourself and how you stay inspired and motivated and don't get complacent is putting yourself in the situation to see how you can perform. So it sounds like half marathon will be happening again in the future.
It will happen again in the future. Going into this past race, this was planned out to be my only half marathon of the year, and everything else was going to be track. And I think I'll stick to that. I don't think I'll do another half marathon until next year at the earliest. But eventually, yeah, I want to see how I do at the roads. It's a whole side of the sport that I have very little experience in now. The track I know well. The track is consistent. It's 400 meters. It's flat. There's pacers. The roads are, a beast.
New York City especially.
Yeah. And, it's fun. Running is becoming a lot more popular among my friends now, like my friends that are not professional runners. And they're getting into road racing and run clubs and having a really fun time. And it's fun because, we have this relatability, but it's not quite the same yet. So at some point, I want to be able to have a better marathon PR than some of my friends. And kind of share that bond. I've spectated some marathons before. I've been to the New York City full marathon to spectate, and it's an electric atmosphere. It looks really fun. Ultimately the same sport, but kind of a different flavor of it. And I want to see if I can be world-class in the marathon too. There'll be time for that. And I think when that time comes, I won't be able to do this, race the track and then race the half marathon and go back and forth. For the full marathon, I think I'll need to be very specific and have a long preparation for that and kind of put the track to the back burner for a little bit to be ready for the marathon.
You've said that you have quite a lot of success in track. You are doing yourself a disjustice there. You are the indoor world record holder for the 3K, was 3,000 meters, and the 5,000 meters. And you are a 2 times Olympic medalist. Bronze medalist. I'm just singing all your praises here. But I think you're the only American to have the double for the 3,000 and the 5,000 at an Olympic Games for medaling, right?
5,000, 10,000, but yeah.
Sorry, 10,000.
Yeah.
Sorry, 5,000, 10,000. Thank you for correcting me. But do you feel like the reason why you're going back to the track, is it because that's what you love? Or is it because you feel like there's unfinished business there to, move up from bronze to hopefully gold?
Oh, it's both for sure. Okay. Yeah, I love the track, of course. Indoor track is really fun. Outdoor track is very fun. But, bronze medals, that's more than I ever expected to accomplish. But when you get them, there's an incredible feeling for a while. And then eventually you start thinking, man, I was only half a second from gold on that one. I was only a second back from winning that whole thing. And you kind of dissect it and you think, oh, there were moments in that race where I could have made up that second. There are moments in training where maybe I could have made up that second. And it's an encouraging feeling that, hey, maybe the gold medal is on the table. And that's something I'll continue to shoot for. Obviously, it's incredibly hard. Everything has to go right to get a gold medal. But it's fun to have that be my goal now. That's as good as it gets. There's no more levels to go. I mentioned this earlier, but yeah, when my world went from the county to the state to the nation to international, now it's at the Olympic Games, and it doesn't get any bigger. There's no extra step. There's no more levels to go. So if I can shoot for that, maybe it ends in a gold, maybe it doesn't, but that's such a good feeling of, you're shooting for the biggest thing possible. No one is shooting for something bigger than that. That's the final level.
Yeah. And this year, obviously, there isn't Olympic Games. Is that why this is the year to fuck around and find out?
In a way, yeah. I think you'll see a lot of track athletes this year try new events and try new training. I just did yesterday. I tried a new event. The training was a little different in the lead up, and that keeps it fresh. It keeps it fun, gives you a new target, and maybe helps your main goal. I think a 1,500 meter specialist that tries a few 5Ks this year might see that it helps their 1,500 at the end of the day. There's a little less pressure without a world championship, without an Olympic Games this year on the track. And yeah, it's a fun time to try something new. A little less stakes, like a little less pressure if you stumble a little bit or if it doesn't go perfect. But for us, the track and the roads, the biggest thing coming up are the Olympic Games. They're 2 years away, but those 2 years go pretty quickly. And they're in Los Angeles. And as someone that lives, trains, and is American, that's as good as it gets, to have a home Olympics and a home crowd. That's, I think, on everybody's calendar, including mine.
Yeah, so your training, you use a lot of words as reflect, dissect, really dive into the weeds and figure out what you can apply for your next race. Before getting into your training specifically, I would love to know, what are some techniques, maybe learnings you've taken from track and applied during your race yesterday?
I think specifically in the race yesterday, the main things I've learned from the track that are applicable to the roads are running in a pack, being relaxed, being there when the racing really starts. And in this case, I was not there when the racing really starts. On the track, you need to be there with a lap to go because that's when everyone starts kicking. And you need to be fresh enough with a lap to go that you can kick. There's a skill to just how you talk to yourself in a race. The races that I do are pretty long. They're not as long as a marathon, but you are out there for a long time in your own head, and you can talk yourself into a lot of things and you can talk yourself out of a lot of things in those moments. And you need to practice that. Practice putting yourself in hard situations where there's a voice in your head telling you, you can't do it, or this goal is too big, or back off a little bit. And the more experience you have just racing and being in those headspaces, you understand, which ones are voices that you should listen to and voices that are just, afraid.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are going out too hard and you do need to take it back a little bit. But sometimes you're just afraid.
Yeah.
And, when you push through those moments, you find out you have a little something extra in the tank sometimes. And it takes a long time, and it's a skill to learn of self-talk. And, I think if you're shooting for a big goal, there's going to be a little bit of doubt. There's going to be a little bit of fear. And you can conquer that if you've conquered it in the past, but it's hard to conquer it for the first time. So it's important to be in hard situations like I have been on the track. I think that will help me going forward on the roads as well.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Runna podcast. Quick one from me. Please can you rate, preferably 5-star, and follow us on your chosen podcast listening platform. This allows us to keep creating the best episodes and bringing you the most inspiring guests to help you along your running journey. Thanks. I would love to dive into how your training has maybe changed. When you first signed with Nike, you were part of Bauman Track Club, which is one of the most infamous training groups ever. Whereas the roads, I see as quite more of a solo sport. I feel like track groups train in packs. The roads is far more solitary. What does your training setup look like now?
Yeah, when I first became a pro, it was a big group. It felt almost like my university team where you had 10 to 15 guys that all trained together and practiced together every day. And we had a coach and a system, and felt very much like an organized bubble. Mm-hmm. Now, as I train, it's a lot more solo. It's a lot more independent. Now you get a lot of benefits from it. The training is all individualized to me. When you have a group of 15, 20 people, it's tough to individualize every single person's training without just completely, splintering the group. So it is a little bit more solitude now, a little quieter. I when the training links up with someone else and we can cross paths and work together, it really helps. It's really nice. But it is a grind. When you race, even if you're running in a pack, you are out there by yourself. And it's a skill to learn that, there's no one else going to push you. It helps if there's a pack that you can latch onto or something or draft off of. But at the end of the day, your coach can't run the race for you or your teammate can't run the race for you. You have to do it yourself. And I think practicing that in training sometimes is a good thing. It can be hard. It can be long and, out on a rainy run by yourself. It sucks. But it pays off in the race for sure.
Yeah, it's building those reps.
Totally.
And I really love how you mentioned even, you can be part of a group and still it's you between the ears that you have to coach and move through time and time again. I heard you mention in an interview, especially transitioning into a longer distance, compound interest. And that seems to be a thread within your whole training philosophy as well. Can you share more about that?
Running, you don't get good at running in one day. Yeah. It takes a while. But you can start to see changes over weeks, over months, over years. And that can be really, really encouraging. Running is a cool sport because you can only get out of it what you put in, and you have to do it every day. And I think that's one thing that draws a lot of people to the sport, especially later in life, where, you might have a boss, you might have obligations at home, but running is something where you have control over it. And if you get out there today, then that's going to make tomorrow a little easier. If you skip a bunch of days unnecessarily, that's going to make tomorrow harder. So you kind of get exactly what you put in. Now, I want to put in just enough each day that my body is adapting and not breaking, because I'm a professional. Not everyone needs to do that, needs to ride the line as hard as I do. But the ideas are the same. The best way to get good at something is by doing it. The best way to get good at something really, really specific is to do really specific training in the lead up. Now, it's not really that simple. For example, if you want to run a good mile, you shouldn't just run an all-out mile every day. But, there should be pieces of that in your training. And, you push the limit some days and then you back off and rest some days. You have hard days, you have easy days. You want to maximize the adaptations so that the race goes well. I think sometimes people will try to maximize training so it looks incredible on paper or maybe on social media or whatever. But if your goal is really to race well, then you have to keep that in mind every day and say, okay, what is the purpose of this day? Is today a recovery day? All right, then I'm going to be the best recoverer out there today. Is today a hard day? Okay, then I'm going to go hard. I'm not going to be afraid to, do what I set out to do. And it takes a while to have that maturity in the sport. But, if you can stack that over and over and over and over and over, even if you're getting, a fraction of a % better each day, if you can do that for a year, if you can even do that for a month, it makes a huge, huge difference in the end.
I think that's something that any runner.
I wish we could put that on loop.
But no matter your level, that's something we can all learn from, just being the best at the cards you've got for that day. It's really interesting. But I think a lot of amateur runners, maybe I'm guilty of this, I try and go all hard the entire year round, because that's what consistency means to me. Whereas I wondered if you organize your year to peak at different times. And I say that because your 2 world records were within a week of each other. Was that organized to peak here and then maybe you have some downtime? Because definitely us amateurs or people trying to bridge the gap between sub-elite and amateur, I feel like I can't ever take the foot off the gas.
Yeah, that is a hard part of the sport. There's a lot of cool things out there. There's a lot of races. But at my level, I can't do them all at my best all the time. Usually how I'll organize my season is the biggest thing would be the Olympic Games that year or the World Championships that year. And then I build backwards from there so that everything leads up to a crescendo where my fitness is great, my mental state is great, And I just am firing all cylinders in that moment. And you have to kind of sacrifice some things along the way to get there. So the big races on the track are called the Diamond League. It's a circuit that, they have races in the US and Europe and Asia and Africa. Those are big races along the way to a goal. And I do peak for them. I'm not at my best year round is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
365 days a year, I'm not at my best. If I'm at my best for one day a year and it happens to be the Olympic Games, then I'm happy. It's in training, in racing, it's, you're training hard to encourage your body to adapt. But it's the recovery between where you actually make those adaptations. And that's a subtle, thing, but I think especially some of my friends that are just getting into the sport, it's something that's hard to remind them about, where even if you had a great workout today, tomorrow you need to give your body a chance to repair itself and recover. And the journey to your best is not a straight line. It's not just hard all the time. It's going to be like, a little peak, and then it's going to come down, and then a little peak and it's going to come down. But you just want that trend line to kind of be up. Mm-hmm. The seasons for me, when you're really firing, like everything you touch is just like magic. You get those really good performances back to back to back, like in the world record cases. But there's long periods of my season where I'm just training hard. I'm just head down and grinding. And if you were to like randomly tell me to race on that day, I actually wouldn't do that well, because, that's not what I'm trying to do at that moment. When you have your peak properly, it's a really good feeling. You're capable of a lot more than you think. But to be at your absolute best every day is hard. Eventually something goes wrong.
Yeah, that consistency over perfection, and consistency being the showing up day after day, no matter what the goal or the race of the day is, including recovery. And you mentioned your friends that are getting into running, encouraging them to really rest on the rest days. What other advice would you give to first-time half marathoners?
Ooh. Okay, well, I've only run one half marathon, so I don't know if I'm the best person for advice here. But in general, you sum this up very well. My biggest piece of advice to anybody would be that the hardest part about any new running goal, any new life goal, anything, is to begin. That is the secret to anything, because so many people are afraid to take that first step because they're waiting for things to be perfect. They're waiting for the stars to align, or for someone else to take care of a bunch of stuff for them so that they can make this big change or do something. But that day never comes. And you realize, I just waited 2 years and I didn't make that first step. Like, think about where I could have been if I just tried. And, maybe things weren't perfect in the moment, but you get that first one in, and then you're encouraged to do the next try. Now, for some people, that's, I just want to go for a walk. And you get out the door and you do that the first day and it sucks. But you got the first one out of the way. Then, that hurdle has been crossed. If your goal is to run every day, then if you can do a week of that, then boom, hurdle's been crossed. And now you can say, okay, I can do it. That wasn't so bad. I can do it. Let's try, adding a little bit longer runs, or after a while that maybe adding a little bit of intensity. But the hardest part is just starting.
Yeah.
And, for this half marathon for me, for example, it would have been nice to have a year preparation for this event. But that would have taken a year. The stars did not fully align for me in this race, but I got my first rep in. And I know that the next one will be even better because I have this experience now. I'm over the first hurdle of the first attempt.
Yeah.
And, I think you can be paralyzed by fear sometimes, paralyzed by indecision or what is going to happen, what other people are going to think. But no matter what your goal is, it's valid for you, and you got to make that first step.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think your mindset there is just super interesting, talking about how the stars didn't quite align for the half marathon, but like you're not knocked back by that. And the same with like your almost moments at the Olympics, like getting bronze. Have you worked on your mindset? Because you just seem hungrier for more rather than being disheartened by those moments.
Yeah, I have worked on my mindset quite a bit. To summarize my mindset is that if you're doing something you really care about, something you enjoy, when you hit those hurdles, those roadblocks, you come up short, you stumble, you have a bad race, whatever. If your heart is in it, you'll find a way, or you'll take away the good moments of that. You'll find things to learn, and then you'll go at it again and try again. If your heart is not in it, you'll just find excuses and reasons why it'll never work. So it's important to set goals that you really care about, things that you want to happen, things that maybe you think might be out of reach. Those goals are the ones where you really grow. And if you're really committed to it, if you really love it, if you really enjoy that feeling, you'll bounce right off of those shortcomings and be even better in the end. Even setting a world record. I don't know how many times I've raced before that and not set a world record.
Yeah.
So and how many times I've raced since that and not set a world record. So it's hard to have everything be perfect every single time. But when you put yourself in situations where you maybe have a bad day, but within the race, you don't give up. That'll make it so next time it's a little easier to not give up in the middle of a race. But each time you kind of fold your cards, if you give in a little bit, from a mental perspective, it becomes easier to do that the next time too. Mm. So it's kind of this snowballing effect where I've become resilient in my mind because I've had all these bad days that I've kind of pushed through, that when the stars do align and I feel incredible on the track, like I can take advantage of that day and set a world record. Yeah. Not every day, everything is perfect like it is then, but it's practice. Yeah. Like your mind, it adapts, just like your body, and you have to train that.
I do want to say that I'm not saying yesterday wasn't a success. Like, that is an insane debut. But I thought it was really interesting that how you said, like, one of your goals was just to not give up. And I guess one of them was probably like stick on the front pack for as long as you can. And again, that's something that any runner can take. And maybe that does come from your track background, thinking about it. But we all get so bogged down in like the splits. But it's really important to have those goals that aren't necessarily based on time, especially because yesterday wasn't a time trial. But just like so you can be proud of yourself for running, almost like a super fast 10K like within that race, or all those little goals. Do you think less in time and splits? Maybe because of your track background.
Perhaps, yeah. The Olympic Games, for example, it doesn't matter if you run 40 minutes for the 10K or you break the world record in the 10K. If you win, that's all everyone cares about. So there's moments on the track where the time doesn't mean anything, and it's all about racing. There's also moments on the track that aren't the Olympic Games where you are just trying to run fast and see, hey, let me see if I'm faster than I was last year. Let me see if I can run a faster split than my brother. Like there's times where the splits do matter. In the race yesterday, I just wanted to compete. I wanted to simplify things and just compete. I probably would have run a little faster if I did watch the splits the whole time and just say, okay, these guys are going too fast. Like, I'm going to back off a little bit. I'm going to do this. I just wanted to race in that moment. And there's races that I have where I am focused on the splits. That just wasn't one of those days. Like, that was just a day where my goal was to compete and try to beat these guys. There's days where I'm on the track and my goal is to run a certain time. So I am paying attention to the splits. So there's some days where it's one and some days where it's the other. They're both fun things to chase. For some of my friends, it's fun for them to try to say, okay, I'm going to try to break 4 hours in the marathon. And I'm going to run even splits because that's right on the edge of my goal or my capabilities. And if I get 1 second under, that's success. And there's also days where my friends are all signed up for the Shamrock Shuffle. Yeah. And they just want to beat each other because it's fun and it's head-to-head competition. So there's those two sides of the sport. The half marathon was the racing side for me. Though one of the world records I set, that was 100% a time trial. That was 100%. This is how fast I need to run, and I'm going to run as close to even splits as I can, keep all the conditions controlled, and see if I can be the fastest ever in this event.
Yeah, I think that clear goal before you even start to step up, to the start line drives a mature decision, which you said earlier. I think that maturity in knowing when it's time to rip it and when it's time to really settle into the plan. How do you make that decision, especially in race, that you're going to just go for it and versus, I wouldn't say backing off, but just staying with the plan?
It's usually easier to make those decisions before the race. I'm not usually thinking too clearly within a race. So
Fair.
Ideally, the more decisions I can make beforehand, it's easier to just stick to them than to have these big debates in your head in the middle of a race. There's moments where, say you're my friend trying to break 4 hours. You're with the 4-hour group, you're running, and you're starting to hurt a little bit. That head-to-head competition could get you going a little bit and say, oh, I need to beat that guy because, he's wearing a cape and, he's a clown. So I'm going to try to beat that guy. That could motivate you like to your time goal. But for me, I usually try to make those decisions ahead of time and say, this is a race where I'm focusing on splits. So this is what I'm going to do. And that is the plan. And I don't need to make any decisions during the race. I just stick to the plan. And then there's also times where I want to have a true race where it's head-to-head competition and placing really matters. And I say, okay, time doesn't matter. These are my cues. These are what I'm thinking about. At this point, I'm going to make a move. I'm going to attack here. I'm going to, follow this guy specifically for a certain amount of the race. And then at 200 to go, I'm going to move. Much easier to make that decision ahead of time than to concoct a plan when you're hurting and not thinking like very clearly.
Yeah, clear strategy is definitely the better way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my last question is, what is next for you? Where can we expect to see you on our screens the rest of this year?
Next, I'll be back on the track. So this year, my season has gone. I had an indoor season through the winter because it's cold and rainy and snowy. Then I ran this half marathon, and next are Diamond League races. So those will be scattered throughout Europe, most likely. There's a race that I'm looking at in Oslo, another in Paris. Prefontaine Classic is back in the US. There's a bunch of other Diamond Leagues in Europe and North Africa that I'm looking at. So track races, 3K, 5K, 10K, a wide range of stuff, and just get out there, race, have some fun, and try to run fast.
Well, we're so excited to see how you get on. Before we move on to our sillier section, we're going to pause to hear from Coach Steph.
Today's tip is on consistency. Consistency beats perfection. Missing one run in your training plan won't ruin your progression, but overdoing it, pushing the paces, might. Focus on steady, consistent training rather than perfection. Over time, that is what drives big improvements.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by the Runna app, the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide. And if you want to try it with 2 weeks totally for free, then use code podcast26 for your 2-week free trial. And please remember to rate and follow us on your listening platforms to help us climb the rankings so that we can keep bringing you the very best episodes with the most inspiring guests to help support you with your running. Thanks.
So Grant, we've talked a lot about what motivates and inspires you and keeps you going, chasing new distances. Complacency doesn't seem to be something that exists in your world of training, but do you think it could become the enemy of performance?
It certainly could. Everyone's wired differently. Like, I'm a very competitive person. I always have been. So I kind of naturally am always searching for that new goal and that new challenge. Not everyone is that way. So you have to take a more active hand in setting a new goal always and having a new target. I think it's important to have a lot of different goals simultaneously, where some of them are easy or some of them are really, really hard. So the easy ones might be, hey, I'm just going to do my workout today. That's a goal. But the hard one might be, I'm going to PR at this race upcoming. That's a much harder one. And ideally, the little ones stack into the medium ones that stack into the big ones. And as you check them off, you set a new one.
Yeah.
That's important, because otherwise you'll check them all off and then you'll have nothing to do, nothing to shoot for. I think as people are more successful in the sport and feel their body change and adapt and have that pride of like, hey, I put in this work and look at the result, it kind of naturally snowballs to, I think I can do a little better next time. running's an addictive sport. People really enjoy it. And once you get over that hurdle of the first few days where it just sucks and you feel terrible and your knees hurt and everything hurts, and you get some consistency, it's a really fun feeling that you can get. And complacency can hold you back. And maybe there's moments where you are complacent and then you lock back in and find a new target, a new goal, or find a new reason for inspiration, and find a new thing you're going to be disciplined on. But it's important to, I think, celebrate when you do good things, when you are successful, even in the small goals, and then eventually look forward to the next one. You can pat yourself on the back and say, good job. But there's always always a new level to shoot for. As you can see with me, I mean, I'm almost at the top, but I'm not quite there. Yeah. Even people that set, world records or have gold medals or whatever, if you speak with them, they'll say, there's always more. I can get another gold medal. I can set this other world record. There's always something to shoot for. And I like having that carrot in front of myself. And when you get to that goal, it's excitement. In a way, it's relief because it was a really hard goal. And you think back to all the things you did, all those moments that led into that one day, and you're really proud of yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the through line with all the elites that we speak to. There's always just chasing something a little bit harder. Yeah, they're never quite happy. On a slightly sillier note, I have a few this or that's for you. So, would you rather lose your watch data for every run, or your stopwatch, no numbers when you run, or have every run automatically upload to Strava?
I think I'd rather have everything auto upload to Strava, no matter what, because the training would be quite compromised if I couldn't use a watch at all. Yeah. The Strava thing, you have good days, you have bad days, especially as a pro. I think people think that we always have good days. But there are bad days too. And, to have that out in the open would be annoying at first, but eventually you'd kind of get over it and realize, everyone has bad days.
Do you use Strava?
I do, but I don't upload everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it when the pros are secretive and we don't know what they're doing. Is that to stop your competitors seeing it? Or is that because Strava just, you don't really care about putting it on Strava?
I've never been a huge, just a huge Strava person in general. I think it's fun. I honestly follow just a bunch of my high school and college friends on Strava. Fun. I don't really follow many other pros. I think the reason a lot of people don't upload all the time is just, for a pro, you kind of want to feel like you have an edge on your competition at all times. Even if you don't actually, and everyone's doing the same workouts, it's nice to think hey, what I'm doing is the best. Yeah. And I'm doing these workouts and I'm doing a 4-mile tempo, and the other guys, they don't know about the 4-mile tempo, it's all mental. Yeah. It's all just trying to find a mental edge, I think.
It's funny because you probably are all doing the 4
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's not, how you put training together is different, but the puzzle pieces are the same.
Yeah.
The threshold, the tempo, the long run, the hills, easy runs, recovery days, off days. No one's inventing new types of workouts, but it's how you kind of piece them together. That's the key.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Would you rather solo track time trial in silence or a chaotic road race with no pacers but the craziest crowd and good music?
I'll go with the track solitude because I'm more used to that. Yeah. Maybe the more road races I'll do, I'll lean into that more. But I actually enjoy just kind of giving it in a track setting and being alone out there and having to be quiet.
I just think track meets seem like a huge party. It sounds like the crowds are mental.
They are very fun. Yeah, they're very, very fun. But there's occasions I raced in the Tokyo Olympics, and that was during the pandemic, and it was dead silent. Yeah, it was a 80,000 person stadium, and no one was there. It was just us. All you could hear was our breathing and footsteps, and it was very strange.
That's eerie. Yeah. Didn't they have cardboard cutouts?
People,
they did have some cutouts. Yeah, they had a couple cutouts, but they didn't have 80,000 cutouts, so it still looked pretty weird.
Totally. So you're designing a dream race. What is the distance? Where is it? Food and drink, and who is presenting the award?
Wow. Okay. A lot of pieces.
Yeah.
My favorite distance is 3,000 meters. Okay. So I'm going 3,000 meters. My favorite track to race on is the Paris Olympic track. It's purple, beautiful track. good memories there, so that helps. Hopefully a full crowd. Person presenting the award, I'll go with Eliud Kipchoge.
Cool.
Yeah. I was starstruck when I first met him.
Yeah.
And food and drink at the finish line.
Yeah.
I mean, right after, I don't know if I would want very much food. I would go with Aquarius,
Oh, yeah.
which is a sports. If you're from the U.S., it's a sports drink that's only in like Europe and Asia. There's a specific Aquarius that they sponsored the Tokyo Olympics, and it was some sort of like lemon lime flavor. It's so good. I've only been able to find it in Japan specifically. The European one isn't quite the same.
All right. Noted.
So whatever that stuff was, the Aquarius from Japan, or Pocari Sweat, one of those two.
We love a Pocari Sweat.
And for food, I don't know, probably something like burger and fries. Like,
nice.
usually my track races are at night, and you're kind of like being really careful about what you're eating throughout the day. So like you're eating oatmeal for like dinner, and it sucks. And so it's nice to have like a real meal after.
Oh, thank you so much for chatting to us today. And yeah, congratulations again for yesterday. And we wish you so much luck for the rest of the season and the year.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was fun.
Before you go, we've got something very exciting to share. We have launched our limited edition Lululemon Runner collection, Your Best Yet.
It's a 10-piece London capsule built for every runner, for every mile, from those training miles through to race day. Designed for both men and women, it performs both on the run and for long after you've finished.
It's available now in the Lululemon London Regent Street store or online in the US and UK.
It's a limited drop, so when it's gone, it's gone.